Hi, Dr. Jeffrey Fannin here. I want to talk about the three types of intuition today. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about what some of the research tells us about intuition, because there's a very common belief among a lot of people that intuition is something that some people have and that others do not. And that's not true. We all have intuition. The question is whether we are listening to our intuition and whether we're using that intuition. And so one of the situations that I encountered a couple of years ago was being in a film called PGS, Your Personal Guidance System Intuition. So as the neuroscientist in that film, I was able to explain a little bit about intuition, and I wanted to share some of that information with you today. Let's talk about some of the research findings in intuition. So sometimes if a future event is going to occur or an emotional event is something that is relevant to us, the heart can produce a signal that alerts you before that takes place. We call that a precognition. Now, around our heart, we have over 4,000 neurites. And a neurite is like a neuron in the brain. And these neurites can pick up, and it helps us generate the energy field around us, which interacts with the field and with other people. And so this is part of our intuitive system. Intuitive intelligence reacts much, much faster than the mind can even perceive, and bypasses, our normal thought processes. So let's take a look at the three different types: implicit knowledge, non-local intuition, and energetic sensitivity. So implicit knowledge is really things that we have learned. Maybe we forgot that we had learned them, but they seem vaguely familiar to us. This happens a lot to scientists, mathematicians, even other walks of life, where maybe they're working on a problem or doing something in research and they just can't find the answer, but it just seems intuitively that they know something about that. So then they kind of put it down, or they think, I'm going to go to sleep, take a nap, and think about this. And as they're doing that, then as our brain gets down into the delta and theta, it opens up this where this information is stored, or that information can come to us from the outside, and they wake up and boom, they have the answer. And that's something that we call implicit knowledge. Seems very familiar to us. Some people have experienced things called deja vu. That's things that we think we have understood and that we have experienced. And so we are looking at something that is familiar to us, and we don't know why it's familiar to us. And that's what deja vu is all about. The second type of intuition deals with non-local intuition. So have you ever known something was going to happen before it happened? Maybe you had an intuition that somebody was going to call you on the phone. The phone rings and all of a sudden that person is there. Or maybe you have this intuition about, as you're driving around to a store or the mall and you're looking for a parking place, and you get this intuition, oh, if I turn right here and go down this aisle, that parking place is going to be there. And then as you get there, the person is just pulling out of the parking space that would be very convenient for you, just happens to be open. These are demonstrations of things that we call non-local intuition. And so we are understanding things and we're not being told, because our higher self can see the bigger picture and it's transmitting some of that information to us so that we understand. Non-local intuition really refers to that kind of knowledge or a sense of something that cannot really be explained by past or knowledge that we've had in the past or any kind of environmental signals. And we call that non-local intuition. And so when we look at energetic sensitivity is when we are sensitive to environmental inputs that are going on. And so we might have, they are really vibrating in our nervous system. So there are two parts of our nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And so the sympathetic nervous system is sending signals from the heart to the brain up the vagus nerve so that it can communicate, and we can have, it will produce the neuropeptides, or the chemicals that we need in order to have a feeling or an emotion about something. Let's take some hypothetical examples that have been proven over time that when an earthquake is about to happen, animals will sense that vibration, that something is about to happen in the environment, like an earthquake, and they might become unruly or unfidgety. Or maybe you've been in the environment where there's an electrical storm about to happen, and we sense that, and so the hair on the back of our neck or on our arms will begin to stand up because there is some electrical energy, some energetic sensitivity that we are aware of, and it's going to, say, well, you need to remove yourself from here, or protect yourself, or whatever needs to happen, that these emotions come about. And so you begin to understand what those environmental signals happen to be. Some people appear to have a great capacity to feel or to sense these energetic occurrences that are about to take place, like an earthquake, or, a thunderstorm that's about to hit, or, I personally experienced some of those. Many of you probably have experienced that, where you have this energetic sensitivity to things that are about to happen, and you just kind of know what that is. And so when electrical current generates a magnetic field, your heart electromagnetic center will sense that and begin to understand and transmit that not only to your brain, but also to your senses as they are interacting with the environment for dealing with those kinds of things. So it's really important, as we kind of go back to non-local intuition. The study of non-local intuition at times has been thought of as being in the same category as telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, things like that. Issues like this have been debated for many, many years in the scientific community, but there's a lot of evidence that these things do exist. And so there's a large body of documented evidence, rigorous scientific evidence, showing that this non-local intuitive perception does take place and dates back more than 7 decades. So it's been around, and we've been looking at this issue for many, many years. A variety of experiments show that it really can't be explained by flaws in the experiment, or the design of the experiment, or the methods and how it's carried out, or any statistical techniques that happen by chance and are just they are selectively reporting the results. So as we look at a number of these studies, we found that there is evidence that the heart's role in this reflects both future and distant events. So it doesn't have to be within our local vicinity. It's been proven time and time again that twins, for example, will feel things even though they may be thousands of miles apart, and will have the same kinds of things because of this non-local intuition phenomenon that deals with what we call brain evoked potentials, or heartbeat evoked potentials. These studies have been found that the participants in the study had a physiological coherence, and I talk more about coherence in another of the sections, but we're not going to give into a great deal of detail here. But the coherence is one of the important things, that our cells can communicate from one cell to the next in terms of energy, information, and vibration that's going on. And our heart plays a big role in that, our cardiovascular system, in order to modulate any changes in the brain's activity in what it knows, what it understands, and in these particular areas. So in other words, participants in some of these studies were more attuned to the information in their heart when they were in a coherent state. And people may not understand what that coherence is. And like I say, we'll talk more about the domains of coherence, what they are and how they come about. One is spiritual, one is mental, one is physical, and the other is emotional. And so we can get more into that in another section. But understanding that being in a state of physiological coherence, we have some element of expectation, and that evidence comes through in our intuition. It suggests that the heart is directly related to these kind of situations, and that source of information interacts with a lot of with a multiple of systems in our body and energetic fields that are being created. So it's good to kind of know and understand that. Science has also found that there is a lot of this pre-stimulus that occurs, and I've seen this. So you can take a look at this graph here. You don't need to understand what the graph says, but it basically is saying that something occurred and the body sensed that before it actually happened. So we were able to see this in things that we did in microscopy. So microscopy, we took blood samples from people. We were doing their brain maps, and we put it under the special microscope, and then we would give the people something that they were supposed to think about, and before they got what it was that they were going to think about, the blood would actually move, and then we would tell them what they were supposed to think about. They would think about it, and then the blood would move again after that occurred. But this particular study really had a very strong tendency to show that the intuition, the communication, even though the microscope was probably 15 to 20 feet away from the person, that we gave them some thought that they were supposed to relay, just to think about. They weren't supposed to relay it anywhere, but the microscopy picked that up and showed a significant pre-stimulus result that was occurring just by the thoughts that they were having. Found those to be extremely interesting, but it's another example of that non-local intuition. Let's talk about some of the benefits of intuition. We will tend to be able to access our deeper wisdom and intelligence that we have as a result of that. We may not know how we're doing it, but we just kind of know things. We will align with our core values, and that's one of the important things that we look at, is understanding how do you determine your core values? What are they? Because many people don't understand what those are, and we'll talk about those more in another section. But we have a sense of purpose, and we can align with that sense of purpose more through our intuition and knowing what to say in that awkward moment, that your intuition kind of kicks in and gathers all of that information and energy, so that in that awkward moment, you can say things that are congruent with what you think and what you believe. We also look at how we take charge of that unnecessary energy expenditures of where we tend to get drained. It's like having a bucket and poking holes, and the water is dripping out of the holes, that energy begins to drain from ourselves, and we can actually renew that energy. And we talk more about that in some of the other sections. We want to be able to access more creativity, and it's our intuition that allows that to happen, because we are dropping down into that theta vibration, and that's where a lot of our creativity lives, in being able to make more intelligent decisions in what we do. So we actually want to be able to get into what we call accessing our practical intuition, shifting into a coherent state to quiet down the mental chatter, and things like meditation help that. And then get rid of emotional unrest so that we can quiet the body and pay attention to actually what's going on with our intuitive feelings and any perceptions that we have that maybe we need to act on. So those are the three types of intuition. Again, looking at implicit knowledge, things we've learned or may not understood that we have known them. Non-local intuition, where we just kind of know things, we don't know how we know them. And then energetic sensitivity, when we are attuned with energetic systems around us, and that the energy field around us is interacting with that, and so we know things and are sensitive to things that are happening in our energetic environment.